Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second National TA call for the month of July. Our topic today is correctional education, and we have two correctional ed leads here in OSEP who will be contributing to today's call, Curtis Kennard and Heather Olson. We're also pleased that we will have some colleagues from the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, Office of School Support and Accountability. And we're especially pleased that we will have some representatives from two of our state education agencies, Pennsylvania and Kentucky, who will be providing some information about how they're improving educational opportunities for incarcerated youth with and without disabilities through collaboration, sharing of information and resources, and general supervision responsibilities. So we just want to convey here that the contents of the correctional ed presentation were developed by the presenters. Obviously, we developed the sections that OSEP will be presenting, but the respective states will we're responsible for developing their own content. These contents don't necessarily represent the policy of the Department of Education. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather Olson.
Welcome. I'm Heather Olson, and I am one of the state leads for MSIP, and I am also one of the correction leads, and I am here with my colleague, Curtis Kennard.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Curtis Kennard. I'm one of the correction ed leads. And now I will turn over to Heather to proceed with the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. The purpose of this call, as you can see, is to improve educational opportunities through collaboration and sharing information, to improve transition services through meaningful planning and successful execution, and sharing resources and information which may be helpful to states and agencies as they develop their correctional education and general supervision policies. Within the U.S. Department of Education, as you can see on this slide, there are several programs which work together to oversee and provide technical assistance regarding correctional education. We provided this slide, and we encourage you to click on it to see more information about each agency and division. We have a fully packed agenda today, as you can see. We will be joined by Kentucky and Pennsylvania, who will discuss the techniques and practices they have used with their correctional education programs. After they present, we will be joined by the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, the Office of School Support and Accountability, who will be sharing information and resources regarding Title I Part D programming. There will be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end of the presentation. If you have a question, we ask that you share it in the Q&A box along with your email address. If we do not have time to answer your question at the end of the presentation, we will follow up in the days following. This presentation will be posted on the OSEP National Call website. The link to the website is at the bottom of this slide. The slide deck that we will share contains additional slides from several of our partners. These partners are not presenting today, but have shared a great deal of information and resources on their slides. We encourage you to go to the website after the presentation and explore the information they have provided. As our presenters share information, it is important to keep in mind some key points regarding special education and correctional education. Within the Individuals with Disabilities Act topic area are Dear Colleague letters. These letters clarify the importance of several key elements regarding special education for students who are incarcerated. The 2019 letter to Duncan was noted noted special education students who are incarcerated in adult facilities must be given the opportunity to earn a regular high school diploma. Over the years, OSEP has received several calls about this issue, and it is further clarified in the 2023 policy letter to Vermont Department of Education legal counsel Jeffrey A. Uden. Additionally, the 2021 lawsuit Charles H. versus District of Columbia stresses students with disabilities in adult correctional facilities are entitled to special education and related services, including during a global pandemic. Packet-based instructions, lack of individualization may violate IDEA. Compensatory education should be considered. You may find it helpful to do a deeper dive into this information, as these findings are important to remember when implementing and assessing your own corrections education program. In July 2023, another Dear Colleague letter was issued regarding general supervision responsibilities. The guidance accompanying this letter is intended to provide states with accessible and actionable information necessary to exercise their general supervision responsibilities to ensure that all children with disabilities have available to them a free, appropriate public education that emphasizes special education and related services. This includes students in correctional education settings. It is highly recommended that you review the documents and make sure your correctional education program is aligned to them. Now, Carol Ann from Kentucky will share what her state is doing regarding correctional education.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Carol Ann Morrison, and I am the Director of the Division of IDEA Monitoring and Results. That is in our Office of Special Education and Early Learning here at the Kentucky Department of Education. And our division focuses on IDEA programmatic monitoring, alternate assessment, dispute resolution, and the state performance plan and annual performance report. So I'm excited to be here with you today and share some information with you regarding correctional education in Kentucky. First, I'd like to share with you a little bit about the implementation of OSEP resources and how we have used those resources to help support correctional education in our state. The first thing that we utilized was the state correctional education self-assessment. When it was released, we utilized this self-assessment to determine areas of strength within the state and areas for improvement. And then, as part of our continuous improvement mindset, we periodically review this self-assessment and we reflect upon additional ways to strengthen our system. So we found this to be a very valuable tool for us for self-reflection and for improvement. And then the other resource that we have utilized quite frequently within our state is the OSEP Dear Colleague letter on the IDEA for students with disabilities in correctional facilities. And together, we utilize this letter and the self-assessment to develop monitoring indicators that we utilize specifically for monitoring of correctional facilities. Students in correctional facilities are included in our state's regular monitoring processes. This occurs through our monitoring of local educational agencies that are providing educational services to students in correctional facilities. But in addition to that monitoring, we have specific processes in place to monitor LEAs and correctional facilities. And that's where we utilize these resources that I had mentioned to adapt and to develop those monitoring indicators. So just to give you an idea of some of those areas that we include in our monitoring are student participation in IEP meetings, participation in required state assessments. We review personnel qualifications. We review the ways that they utilize surrogate parents, procedural safeguards and due process protection. We also look at IEPs for transfer students and submittal of records. We look at child find and how that's being implemented within the facilities and evaluations. We consider personnel development. We review student individual education programs. We review least restrictive environment and how those decisions are being made for students through the IEP team. And we also look at post-secondary transition. So those are just a few of the main overarching areas that we're looking at when we do monitor in correctional facilities. And our monitoring is conducted through both off-site and on-site activities. We start with off-site activities, which include desk reviews of student special education records. And we also review the agreements that are in place between the LEAs that are providing the educational services and the facilities themselves. We review all of this prior to going on site for a visit. And then once we're on site, we conduct interviews and we do walkthroughs in the facilities. And our offsite activities really help to inform the questions that we want to ask in interviews when we're on site, or the things that we want to look for as we're doing walkthroughs of the facilities. I also wanted to share with you today a little bit about the transmittal of records for all of our students in Kentucky, but especially talk about some of the benefits of this for our students in correctional facilities. In Kentucky, we have a statewide student information system, and it's known as Infinite Campus. And it is the authoritative source for student data in the state. The system includes things such as student demographics, attendance, behavior, health, grades, program participation. There are a lot of different records in this system, and it does include all of the special education records for students. And these records are easily transferred between LEAs when a student moves. And this really helps support students within correctional facilities, as often we see that they can be a transient population. And so if they're moving from one facility to another, or if they're moving from a facility and they're moving out of the correctional system and back into their home school district, then those records can quickly and easily be transferred for them so that the new school district that's providing services to them has access to all of their records. Another benefit of having a statewide system is that we have access to real-time information at the state level. So we can access those records as well at the state level. When we do our off-site desk reviews, we can review those special education records through Infinite Campus. We can also review data. We can run different reports and have different data sets at the state level that we can access to review, and helps us to make decisions based on data. And on this slide, I've just included a few of our resources related to monitoring, since that's specifically what I was talking about today. And these resources are posted on our state webpage, and they have been distributed to LEAs and correctional facilities to support them in their implementation of the IDEA and to help them understand the monitoring process of that. The first resource that you'll see listed on the screen is a webinar that we provided for LEA staff and correctional facility staff, and we conducted this prior to monitoring visits for last year. And so we invited anyone that wanted to attend and hear the information, but we specifically invited those LEAs and correctional facilities that had been notified of an upcoming monitoring visit. And we just wanted to share with them information about the monitoring process and what they could expect throughout that process. So we did record that and post on online on our website, and it's available if you'd like to view that. The second resource listed on the page is a link to a guidance document that our office developed. And we developed this one specifically to address adult correctional facilities and their responsibilities under IDEA and how the state monitors their implementation of Part B of IDEA. And then the last resource there on the screen is a link to our differentiated monitoring and tiered engagement manual. And this manual actually includes information about all of the IDEA monitoring activities in Kentucky. It includes information about the history of monitoring, the monitoring process, and the process for correcting noncompliance. So while it includes information about all the different processes, it does have a section that is specific to correctional education if you wanted to look at that section specifically related to this topic. So I am going to turn it over now to Ronnie from Pennsylvania.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for passing it along, Carol Ann. So my name is Ronnie Russell, and I am a special education consultant in the state of Pennsylvania. We work directly underneath our Bureau of Special Education, and I happen to be a lead on our corrections education and cyclical monitoring of those facilities within. We have a lot of similarities to the state of Kentucky, which is really nice to see. And one of the additional areas that I would like to talk to you about today is our innovative strategies ensuring equitable educational opportunities. So Pennsylvania, as a resource, has the Pennsylvania Reentry Council, which is a group of reentry stakeholders. Additionally, our Department of Corrections in Pennsylvania has the Bureau of Reentry Coordination. They work very closely together with education and treatment before folks that are incarcerated are being released. And you'll see the links to those things there. Additionally, there is a link to highlight the Pennsylvania Department of Education's Equity Hub, and it is a coherent collection of resources that our educational community may use in promoting intentional equity in their communities. It covers pillars such as general equity, self-awareness, data practices, family and community engagement, academic equity, and disciplinary equity. The second bullet on the slide is around child find and reentry. And so to highlight some things there, in addition to that Pennsylvania Reentry Council, when we ensure that districts are conducting child find through training and making sure that they know what that means, we also are ensuring that when a student does become incarcerated, be it in a juvenile facility or an adult facility, that they are thinking about that discharge in the beginning. So working on discharge with where the student will be going once they leave the facility. And then the last bullet is our Department of Education cyclical monitoring for continuous improvement materials and resources. And there you will see that we work very closely with school teams to ensure that they are following our monitoring manual, and they are also included in the training that our Bureau of Special Education does at the beginning of the school year or before in the summer around the folks that are going to be monitored in the upcoming year. And they follow the same monitoring that any other school district goes through in the state of Pennsylvania. This slide shows you a lot of our different basic education circulars in Pennsylvania. So these basic education circulars are guidance on our laws and regulations in Pennsylvania. The first one listed here is a basic education circular around educational programs for students in non-educational placements. The second one is non-resident students in institutions. Again, that emulates that first one on non-educational placements. And currently in Pennsylvania, these are being revised to just make sure that those responsibilities are as clear as possible. And the next one down is, this came from back in the late 90s when our county prisons were looked at. We now have this 1306.2, and this goes through and shares with educational entities their responsibilities to students that are incarcerated in county prisons. and it goes through regular education and special education. And then the last bullet here is also, as Kentucky mentioned, we also have a records center that can assist local educational entities in timely retrieval of records. They ensure a quick retrieval of academic records to prevent repeated screening and assessments, and it does shorten the time in transferring records from various educational entities. And I'll show you on a next slide how to find that resource for our records center. Okay, this slide is showing you that we have a plethora of educational opportunities and online courses for our corrections educators and administrators. As part of the training and arm of the Bureau of Special Education, so our Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance is the training arm of our Bureau of Special Ed. We have a plethora of online courses for educators and administrators to access to ensure a free, appropriate public education to our students with IEPs. In addition to that, something that I'm very excited about and integral in is our Attract, Prepare, Retain initiative and the networking and learning opportunity. We actually have a strand solely dedicated to a community for correctional teachers and administrators. We've had topics such as Special Education 101, English as a Second Language, Secondary Transition, Record Retrieval, IEP writing, and evaluation reports. In addition to Kentucky talking about the state's self-assessment tool, we also have used this wonderful resource that the folks at OSEP have provided to us. We do look at this every year and make sure that our practices are aligned in each identified area of the tool, and really make sure that we have outlined if there's any areas that we're missing. The link at the top is a link to our Pennsylvania Department of Education and things that were established actually during COVID. One of the things I want to highlight there is accelerated learning and the toggle to that information. And this was really for LEAs, our local education agencies, to transition back to school and provide services. So all of these things were shared with our correctional facilities during COVID and after COVID. And even now, it's still listed there. You'll also find there frequently asked questions and messages to those school communities. The next bullet down that you will see is, again, the link to our Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network. This is where you can find a link to our corrections education and our records center folks. It also will show you on this website our training opportunities and also the link to all of our multi-tiered system of support. It covers graduation, post-secondary outcomes for students with disabilities. And as the training arm of the Bureau of Special Education, you will find all of the initiatives that the Bureau of Special Education has us conducting trainings on. And just to reiterate, our training arm of the Bureau of Special Education, along with our Department of Education, provides a full array of professional development and technical assistance targeted to improve student results. This professional development and technical assistance takes many forms in order to meet the varied needs of our constituents. Week-long summer institutes, ongoing professional development series, webinars, on-site assistance, and individual student or teacher supports are some of the means by which we provide supports to schools. And again, that's in addition to all of the cyclical monitoring that we do and technical assistance throughout the year. This is a link to our state correctional institution website. And what you'll find here, as I highlighted previously, is a list of their facilities and a lot of information around their community reentry. And it links to every one of the counties that a student that might be transitioning back home would be going back to and the resources available. The next bullet down is a website for our state juvenile facilities. It is listed as Juvenile Justice Services, and they do have that commitment to the youth, and that is under the Bureau of Juvenile Justice Services, and it lists there their educational services, their career and technical training, and their work training program. And now I will turn it over to the next group, I believe Title I. Thank you.
All right. Hello. Thank you, Ronnie. Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Bueller. I'm with the U.S. Department of Education, and I'm joined today by my partner in crime, Heather Denny. We're going to talk about Title I Part D in terms of the education for youth and the juvenile justice system. But we're also going to talk about the homeless education. If Heather could say hi real quick, and she could tell you a little bit about her background. She'll be able to speak to both elements today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Heather Denny, and I'm also with the department. I'm a former state coordinator from Montana, both for Title I Part D and for homeless education. And as Jeff said, I'll be talking a little bit more about local programs in LEAs and about McKinney-Vento and how those services may intersect with students in the juvenile justice system.
All right, we're going to do our best to give you a quick introduction to Title I Part D program, with the caveat that it's a sophisticated program. So to help with that, I'm going to talk about it's divided into two subparts. I'm going to primarily talk about subpart 1, which is the state agencies, and as Heather said, she's going to talk about subpart 2, which is local education agencies, right? And we're going to talk about the Title I Part D in general, what it means for all youth, but we're going to really hone in on what it means in relation to IDEA laws too also. So the overall purposes of Title I Part D is to improve the educational services and outcomes of youth and local, tribal, and state institutions. And you heard me talk about the juvenile justice system. Most people think of it as delinquent, but there's also neglected at the state level. We want to make sure that all youth, even though youth are in the state agencies and in the system, that they have opportunities to the same academic standards and expectations and supports as all children, right? Big goal, but that's what we're working towards, right? And that's why these partnerships and learning about all the amazing things happening on the ground really informs how we support your all's work. Ronnie talked a lot about reentry, and we in our terminology is mainly transition. We're going to talk about transition, but it's basically the same thing in terms of providing services to help the youth who are institutionalized or after been adjudicated transition back to school or employment or adulthood and those type of things. And then at the local level, there's also some elements of Title I Part D that are dedicated to supporting at-risk youth. They haven't been adjudicated. They're not in the juvenile justice system, but they're at risk. There's federal definitions for at-risk, which includes things like chronic absenteeism, but there's also state-specific definitions of at-risk. So if you ever want to learn more about your state specifics, you could reach out to your state coordinator or us. We'll reach out to your state coordinator, and we'll find out what it means for you and your state specifically. All right, those were the overall goals of the program. Next slide. There we go. So now I'm going to focus on subpart 1. Again, so these are the state agencies that are eligible and responsible. They're responsible for providing free education of youth who are post-adjudication and who are either in a neglected or delinquent. Well, you're in an eligible, neglected, or delinquent institution. You're attending community day programs, or we also the program also bridges into adult correctional institutions. The age ranges vary for youth with special needs and young adults with special needs, but it does bridge over into adult correctional institutions also. So the money from the federal government goes to the state education agencies, and then they give out the sub grants to the state agencies. We support them in the effort, but the states are responsible for administering these programs, right? So the programs, again, are going to assess the educational needs of youth soon after their institution they've been adjudicated and arrive. They receive initial assessments, and then regular follow-up assessments to see if their educational needs are being met. The state agencies need to coordinate with other state and federal programs. And we emphasize here with special education programs. Each subpart 1 grantee, the state agencies, out of the grant, they must reserve 15 to 30% of the grant specifically for transition or reentry activities. Now, it can mean a lot of different things, preparing them for the day when it comes, actually helping them with the transition. There's a lot of different things that go into it, but the grants must reserve 15 to 30% and have a staff member designated to assist the coordination of those transition for the students, again, from the facilities, either back into their schools or back into the communities, and help them be successful with their transition back. So that's the general overview of subpart 1, but we wanted to talk about subpart 1 as it relates to the IDEA specifically. State responsibilities, or the SEA is responsible for ensuring that the children and youth in the state agencies are identified and served under IDEA. Just because they're in the juvenile justice system doesn't change anything. The same rules apply. So state agencies must have child find policies and procedures in place and follow those procedures. Any students suspected of having disabilities must be evaluated in a timely manner. All students must, right? We identified that, but specifically added attention for those youth suspected of having a disability, evaluated for those disabilities. Even if they're not in the institution or the facility long enough to complete the evaluation, they must be evaluated and start that process. The reason we add the thing about the not in the facility long enough is often you don't know when youth are coming and going in these facilities. So while you have the youth, while these agencies have the youth, they must do their best to assess those needs. State agencies must comply with all applicable IDEA and secondary transition requirements. So as they graduate or as they move on to secondary. And then students with disabilities are also have the same protections with the discipline procedures that are outlined in IPA. So still the same rights, still the same supports. It's just we have to added coordination to make sure that they receive those supports. Next slide, and I'm going to pass it back over to Heather. Thank you so much.
So when we're talking about the other portion of Title I Part D, that's subpart 2, which is local educational agency programs, LEAs may be eligible to receive a subgrant. This is, although it's a formula, the way that the grant funds are calculated, just because you have a facility does not mean you will receive a subgrant automatically. Like that's up to the state, how they determine those funds go out. So you're looking at the kinds of facilities that are in your LEA. Is it a residential facility? And then is it for students who are adjudicated by the court, either because of criminal activity or maybe a status offense, but they have been sent to that facility as part of the juvenile justice process. Funds for subpart 2 support, again, completion of secondary education, transition activities, and LEAs can use these funds for at-risk children and youth. The responsibilities for LEAs under IDEA Part B, again, LEAs are responsible, just like they are for all children who are enrolled in the LEA, for identifying, evaluating, and serving those children, including timely evaluations, which Jeff mentioned. We know that students don't always stay in these facilities very long, and that those LEAs need to work with state agencies to ensure that records are transferred in a timely manner. We do have a number of resources here for you. So if you are interested in learning more about Title I Part D, there's a link there. We do have our non-regulatory guidance linked, which is in the middle of being updated. So we hope to have new guidance out later this fall. We do have our own Technical Assistance Center, NDTAC, the National Delinquent and Neglected and Delinquent Technical Assistance Center. I've linked that there. We've linked the transition toolkit with a supplement and some more information on transition. And then we also just want to remind you that although students in facilities are not homeless while they are in a facility, the student's family may be experiencing homelessness while the student is in the facility. And we do know that many students transition back into families experiencing homelessness, and particularly young people who are aging out of the system often transition back into what we would consider to be an unaccompanied homeless youth situation. If you think a student may qualify as homeless, we do have links here so you can learn more about that. And then we also have a number of links here, again, on identifying students, identifying unaccompanied youth. You can look at program development and kind of learn more about eligibility. And we strongly urge you to work with your state coordinator for homeless education or the local homeless liaison in your school district. And I'm sorry we rushed through those, but if you have questions, we're certainly happy to answer them, and you can always reach out to us for more information. And with that, I am going to turn it back over to OSEP.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Heather. There's so much information from all of our presenters. The American Rescue Plan also provides a great deal of information for children and youth who are homeless, and that should be something that your state will want to consider as you're planning for students who are transitioning out of correctional facilities or who are facing homelessness due to other reasons. As you can see, we have numerous federal technical assistance center and advocacy groups to help you to work with your correctional education program. We have provided you with many links and resources. Curtis and I are also happy to provide you with technical assistance if you reach out directly to us. Next slide, please. We do have a question, and it is for Kentucky, and it's a great question. It says, how do you get data on adults in adult correctional facilities when they are not assigned or accessible to the SEA? What a great question. Carol Ann, do you want to share your thoughts on that?
Sure. Thanks, Heather. We rely on the adult correctional facilities to provide us with that information.
Wonderful. I think it's really important to establish relationships with different resources in your state, in particular, care and treatment facilities, juvenile detention centers, some of the places that may refer juveniles into the adult system. Ronnie, did you want to add to that?
Yes, if I may, Heather. So in the state of Pennsylvania, the same, similar as Kentucky, we get our information from the actual facilities. They provide to us and use our record center to retrieve records, even on folks that may be in their 80s, for example. They do that retrieval to ensure that the student has graduated. Otherwise, they try to get them in school. Additionally, in Pennsylvania, we have our team that meets, if not on a monthly basis, a bi-monthly basis, or every other month, with the Department of Corrections and someone from the state juvenile entity. And when we all meet, we share where training is needed and, the numbers of students, be it 21 and under or even adult students in the facilities.
That relationship building is so critical, and it's so important to have these discussions across agencies. And Carol Ann, did you have any kind of final remarks on that before we close out?
No, I think we've covered it. Ronnie did a great job of jumping in there and adding additional information. Thanks.
Wonderful. Curtis, do you have any final words before we close out for today?
Yes, I just want to thank the presenters, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and Title I Part D, our collaborative partners. And I also want to thank the resource partners. So please follow up, as Heather had mentioned previously. There are a lot of good resources that would be very helpful for the state. So when the presentation is posted, please follow up on those resources. If you want to reach out to Heather and myself directly, you can. Reach out to the presenters directly or the resource providers directly. So appreciate everyone being on the call and taking your time. And you can always reach out to us anytime. At this point, we'll turn it back over to our division director, Dr. Greg Core, for closing remarks.
Thank you, Curtis. And again, I want to extend my appreciation to our partners in the States, Ronnie and Carol, for talking about some of the really innovative practices that you're engaged in to reach out to this population. Also to Jeffrey and Heather Denny from our Office of School Support here. In closing today, I want to remind everybody that the OSEP Leadership Conference is less than 2 weeks away. It will begin on Tuesday, August 6th. I'm hoping that you've all registered already, but if not, it's not too late. I think it's going to be a terrific conference, and I look forward to seeing you all there. So with that, I think we can close out just a few minutes early today. Thank you.